Welcome to Sirius's training series. This video will cover the differences between cost-based and area-based pricing. Before we look at how control allows you to choose between area-based and cost-based pricing and how you can use those models interchangeably for your different scenarios at your shop, let's talk about some of the differences between the two concepts. So you'll hear us talk a lot about price versus cost. Price being the amount you charge to your customer, cost being the total amount of things that cost you to produce that job. So not just strictly cost of your materials, but cost of using your equipment, cost of paying your employees to operate that equipment, also indirect expenses such as rent, utilities, maybe mortgages, everything that keeps the shop up and running but doesn't necessarily directly tie to a particular job. When you subtract your price from your cost, you get your gross profit, which will be your profit over your cost for that particular job. Some of the choices that you will have while discussing your pricing method and how you're going to set up is whether or not we're only going to look at your pricing. So we're going to ignore all your costs and just focus on a set price. So maybe an example being a set table that you've been using in your shop for a while. Or if we're going to include pricing and costing analysis in order to come up with your retail value. Now you can use both in any combination, so we can do a costing analysis and still use an area-based pricing method, but it will just give you a better view of what your profitability would be within your shop. So just kind of an overview of your different pricing methods available to you through control. First being area-based pricing. It could be a square foot pricing or market-based pricing. Typical factors included price per square foot of a printed job, maybe a charge on how much quantity they're ordering. Maybe you have a couple of setup charges based on type of job, type of equipment being used, and you may or may not factor in scrap to your job. Some of the strengths of area-based pricing is the simplicity of coming up with the calculation, but some of its weaknesses are it's not highly accurate on larger jobs, it has no relation to cost, and there's also a tendency to forget to revise as costs change over the years. Second popular model is cost-based pricing or cost-plus pricing. Factors being used into creating that price is all your substrates, your equipment, and your labor cost with a markup or a multiplier added to it to form your retail price. Some of its strengths are it's more accurate based on what you are using to pay out your vendors. Some of its weaknesses is it does take some more time to set up. You have to do some testing and evaluation, specifically around times that it takes on equipment or machinery. And it requires that you update it a little bit more frequently based on what's going on in your market. Other methods that we won't go into today, but we do offer fixed pricing or table-based pricing for various jobs, and that will be discussed in a later training video. Typically how area-based pricing would work is you would take your substrate square foot charge times your number of printed square feet, and that would form your base price. And then you can add a scrap percentage on top of that, so a value times your number of scrap square feet being used for that job. So essentially any of the material that you can't put back into inventory in order to recoup some of that cost. Then you may add a setup charge to it, such as carrying some of the weight of getting your machine set up, your labor, administrative fees, things of that nature. And then you may or may not have percentage increases based on non-standard printing options. In this example, we're saying that the printer resolution might be a higher quality or a higher speed, and you need to increase your price. And then all those numbers summed together will form your pre-tax price. For cost-based pricing, we'll take the sum of all your estimated costs times their respective multipliers to form your retail price. So for example, we would take the individual substrate, including maybe any lead in or lead out or extra scrap percentage accounted for, times the substrate multiplier to form the material price. Similarly, your ink would take its estimated usage times its multiplier to form your ink price. Your labor and equipment would have a calculation of estimated time evaluated based on the numbers that you've provided us to, based on their operations within the shop, times their individual multipliers to form respectively your labor and printer price. In this example, we would add all four of those factors together, and that would form your retail price. Some factors to consider when thinking about your pricing methods and how you would like to move forward. Your pricing should always be profitable and competitive to your market, meaning that you should be covering your costs and covering factors for future needs, but you're also comparable to your market and to your competitors. Your part costs should be accurate based on the information available within your shop. And your multipliers or your markups, if using cost-based pricing, should be reviewed every once in a while to make sure that it is still competitive to your market, your individual market, and that you are being profitable in the long run. Let's take a look at two examples set up in the system, one for area-based pricing and one for cost-based pricing. The first line item I have here available is set up for area-based pricing, meaning that I am not technically looking at any of my costs for my printer, my paper, or my ink. All my pricing is being built off of market-based value. Where that is being set is under my item setup or my template setup option. I am defining that I have a one-time setup of $5 for this particular job. If they are providing me more than one artwork file, I'm going to charge them $1 per artwork file. I'm charging them $4 per square foot of printed vinyl, and I'm charging them $1 of scrap per square foot of the material that I can no longer use based on the job. When I look at my evaluation, my order is $107.75, and it is strictly being driven off those factors. If I look at my material consumption or my material usage, it'll show me how that number is being broken out. So currently, based on this job, a 48 by 48 print, I'm using 16 square feet of material, and I'm using 5.75 square foot of scrap in there. If I look at my item price details available next to my template information, it'll show me a breakdown of how each of those factors are being pulled in. So there's my $5 for my one-time setup. There's my $1 for my original or my design file. My 64 square feet for my printed area. I have my $5.75 for my scrap area. And then in my example, you're seeing another 32 square feet here, simply to display that in some cases, all your setup and your scrap percentage, your originals, all that can be defined and used multiple scenarios, but your material may drive your price. So I have another option set up here on my actual material setup screen, defining that this particular vinyl is being charged at $2 per square foot. Please discuss with your consultant which square foot price makes most sense for your shop, either on the material or on the template. Now, if I had done the costing analysis before setting up my retail price, I could also compare this job to my cost being evaluated against my printer, material, and template. And I can do that by coming down to the Parts tab at the bottom, and I can see what my estimated usage for my equipment and labor is, my estimated usage for my inks and material, my unit costs for each of those items, as accurate as I have done through my testing. And then I can compare those numbers here in the bottom left-hand corner My total cost will be the addition of all my estimated costs combined. And then I can compare that to my subtotal price, which is my area-based pricing, and see that my margin is 82% for this particular job. Our second example that we had available to us was our cost-based pricing model. So it is the exact same job, 48 by 48, same printer, same material. But now when we go into our template setup or our item setup screen, we'll simply see that it's based on our cost only here. And so it's strictly the addition of all the individual costs times their markups added together. So similarly, if we come to the parts tab, I can add 2 columns here to this example called suggested multiplier and suggested price. So my estimated cost column will still add up together to give me my total cost for the job. But now I will factor in my multiplier for each row, and my suggested price column will add up together to give me my subtotal price. Still comparing those two numbers together, I will get my margin percentage. If you have any additional questions on which model is best for your shop, please reach out to your consultant to have a more in-depth training session about the differences between cost or area-based pricing. You can also join us on the startup webinar at 11 Central. Information is available at the top of your training pages. And if you have any additional questions, please let us know. Thank you. Have a great day.